AP English Language and Composition, Row B Training Supplement, Q3, Argument. This training focuses on Row B, Evidence and Commentary. In particular, it is intended to help you distinguish between responses that earn a score of 2 and those that earn a score of 3 in this row. First, we will discuss the Row B rubric and how the key terms evidence, commentary, claims, and line of reasoning are defined for the purposes of scoring. Then you will read a response that received a score of 2 in Row B, and we will discuss why it earned that score rather than an adjacent score. We will do the same with a response that earned a score of 3 in Row B. Here is the scoring rubric for Row B, Evidence and Commentary. We will be focusing on the distinction between responses that earn 2 points and responses that earn 3 points. Let's begin with evidence. For the purposes of scoring AP English Language FRQ3 exam responses, evidence can be defined as anything that is used to support the student's argument, including historical and literary examples, personal anecdotes, and relevant statistics or facts. Responses that earn 2 points in Row B provide some specific relevant evidence, and this can consist of a mix of specific evidence, including details, paraphrase, or summary, and broad generalities, which are typically broad, vague concepts that could be applied generally. In contrast, responses that earn 3 points in Row B provide specific evidence to support all claims in a line of reasoning. They uniformly offer evidence to support their claims and focus on the importance of specific details when building their argument. Now, let's consider commentary, which is when a student comments on how the provided evidence supports a claim. For the purpose of scoring FRQ3, commentary is when students connect their evidence to their position. Responses that earn 2 points in Row B are described as explaining how some of the evidence relates to the student's argument, but without establishing a line of reasoning, or with a line of reasoning that is faulty. So, such a response may include some indication of how the evidence relates to the student's argument, but those explanations may be simplistic, inaccurate, or repetitive, and they do not strengthen the argument. In contrast, responses that earn 3 points in Row B are described as explaining how some of the evidence supports a line of reasoning. These responses focus on the importance of specific details in order to build their argument. While having more developed commentary than responses earning a 2, these responses may still have some lapses. For example, failing to integrate some evidence or failing to adequately support a key claim. We can see that line of reasoning is a crucial determinant of whether a response earns a score of 2 or 3 for both evidence and commentary. As stated in the AP English Language and Composition General Scoring Principles document, for the purposes of scoring, line of reasoning means a response's logical organization and cohesive presentation in which all pieces work together in service of an argument. This means that in order to have a line of reasoning, a response needs multiple supporting claims, each of which work in concert with one another to prove an argument. For argument, a claim will typically be a reason, point, or assertion to prove a position. So, let's take a look again at Row B of the scoring guidelines, this time focusing on line of reasoning. Responses earning 3 points in Row B organize an argument as a line of reasoning composed of multiple supporting claims to support the position. Conversely, a response earning 2 points in Row B may make 1 point well, meaning one claim may be supported and explained, but the response either does not make multiple supporting claims or does not adequately support more than one claim. Or, if a response does not explain the connections or progression between the student's claims, then a line of reasoning is not clearly established, and the response should receive 2 points in Row B. With these explanations of evidence, commentary, and line of reasoning in mind, please pause this video and read sample question 3 on Maxine Hong Kingston's claim, as well as the first sample student response that is provided with this training. As you read, consider the qualities that led this response to receive a score of 2 in row B. Let's take a look at why this response received a score of 2 in row B. The response does provide some relevant evidence in paragraphs 2 and 3 when it discusses the civil rights movement and walkouts and protests against gun violence, respectively. However, the evidence is not particularly specific in its examples, citing protests, acts of bravery, and more by a very large group of American people in paragraph 2, and walkouts that are held at schools in paragraph 3. Additionally, the response's attempt at commentary is consistently simplistic and does not make clear connections between the evidence given and the response's argument, as in paragraph 2. If there was only one voice being used to make these changes, they most likely would have never been made. The commentary is stronger in paragraph 3 when the response links the way school walkouts are publicized by news organizations to having our voices be heard by people in positions of power that can help us. But it follows that with a simplistic and unexplained claim that this would not be possible with only one voice. In addition, a score of 3 in row B is not appropriate because no logical or clear line of reasoning is established in the response. Both paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 contain evidence of protests, but the commentary is too minimal to establish a connection between the protests held during civil rights movement and those held in recent years against gun violence, beyond stating that a very large group of American people and groups of millions of Americans took part in them to create a community of voices. The simplistic, repetitive commentary leads to a weak line of reasoning. No clear explanation is given as to how these two protests have plentiful power to make change. For all of these reasons, the response received 2 points in row B. Now, please pause the video again and read the second sample student response, keeping in mind evidence, commentary, and line of reasoning as you consider why this response earned 3 points in row B. In this response, we see a greater amount of specific, relevant evidence than we saw in the 2-point response. Where the 2-point response used a mix of specific and general evidence, this response uniformly offers specific evidence to support its claims, using examples ranging from petitions, television shows, public versus private education, and American history. In terms of commentary, we see how the response explains some of the evidence it provides. Let's look more closely at paragraph 2. The student begins with the claim that a community of voices is stronger and presents the relevant example of petitions, explaining that while one person may be the main advocate for a petition, it is not without the voice of many other individuals that the petition becomes noteworthy to the government or whoever the petition is intended for. The paragraph continues with an example from the television show Grey's Anatomy, in which the main character, who is on trial, is let go when a large group of her patients comes to support her. The response explains that this is a scenario of higher-ups listening to the group, but does not clarify who the higher-ups in the scenario are, or how this example clearly supports how the voice of the community certainly becomes more powerful. The same is true in the following 2 paragraphs. While the commentary does make some connections between the evidence provided and the student's main argument, it does so inconsistently. For example, in paragraph 3, the response's example of individualized perspectives on education being formed by personal circumstance is specific and relevant, and is followed by the commentary, "Neither are wrong," which seems to start explaining the connection to the paragraph's claim that community voices bring out more validity and truth. However, what follows, but it would take them coming together to discuss the schooling options available, and therefore not the voice of one, does not clearly explain how this example ties to the paragraph's claim. Therefore, the response's commentary overall explains only how some of the evidence supports a line of reasoning, and is therefore not strong enough to earn the response higher than